Ladies and gentlemen, it's now 7 o'clock p.m. Time for the regular meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Town of Orleans to come to order, and I therefore call it to order. I'm Michael P. Marnick. I'm the chair. And I also have with me tonight regular members Jablin, McCartney, and associate member Gerald Mulligan. Also in attendance, with gratitude, are the board secretary Sandy Stewart and the building commissioner of the Town of Orleans, Tom Evers. We have one item on the agenda, and actually there are two items. One is housekeeping, and that is to consider and possibly approve the minutes of the October 18th, 2017 meeting.
I move their approval.
Second.
Very well. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Then the motion carries unanimously, and those minutes may be entered into the archives of the zoning board. We have one item for hearing, and that is the case number 2075. That is the application of Jay and Holly Shackelford for a special permit as set forth in General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 9, the Orleans zoning bylaw, Section 16421A, Note 5, to construct a dwelling and barn resulting in building coverage which exceeds 4,000 square feet. This property is located at 89 Port Nemicut Road, which is noted on Orleans map number 75, parcel number 84. We have a quorum, therefore all members previously identified as present will consider this application. And I need to ask whether any member of the board has had any communication with the applicant or any of the applicant's agents, which ought to be disclosed to the public or to the applicant or to each other, or which would constitute a conflict of interest. Is there any?
Wait when I drive by the property.
Okay. I wouldn't be surprised that other than the a view, either drive-by or a view on the ground, has the member had any contact with the applicant? There's no positive response, therefore all members are indifferent and impartial. The agent for this application appears to be Mr. Little, and welcome again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. David Little from Ryder and Wilcox, representing Jay and Holly Shackelford. I provided you with several plans. I might start by pointing out the site plan that shows the property as it looked when Jay and Holly purchased it. When they purchased it, there was a house here, a garage here, and a dwelling there. And the only reason I'm showing you this is that if you look at the site plan, the current site plan showing the proposed structures, I thought it was important to know why we hatched in the former location of the house, because I feel it's important to see that the barn, the proposed barn, is going very close to the former footprint of the dwelling that was on the property. So we are here before you this evening because of the trigger in 16421A Note 5 that requires anyone who exceeds 4,000 square feet in building coverage to come before the Zoning Board of Appeals and apply for a special permit.
Excuse me, Mr. Little, let the record reflect that Mr. Taub an associate member has joined the meeting during your introductory remarks.
Thank you. So the plan that I've provided you, the property is quite interesting. The former owners really liked the look, the rural feel, the farm look of the property, and they placed 2 conservation restrictions on it. So, they show in our plan, and I've kind of highlighted them here. These 2 areas that are the front on Port Innimaket Road have to remain natural, and no structures can be built on them. Even the garden that's shown within the restricted area has to be maintained in its current size and configuration. No grading can occur. So Jay and Holly have this portion of the property within which to do their proposed work. So they are doing 2 things. They're proposing a barn in the in a close location to where the former dwelling used to be, up near Port Innimaket Road. And then they are proposing a new dwelling at the rear of the property, which is, I must say, approximately 300 feet away from Port Innimaket Road. The property has in excess of 80,000 square feet of buildable upland. So by right, we are allowed to have 2 dwelling units on the property. And what we are proposing is 2 dwelling units. The existing garage is going to be removed, and a barn is going to be built. I've provided you with elevations of what the house is proposed to look like. This would be the view, the distant view that you would see from Port Innimaket Road. And I've also provided you with plans and elevations of what the garage will look like. The garage is going to be built by Pine Harbor. The view from Port Innimaket Road would be this. You would see the gable end, there's a small cupola proposed, and as with other Pine Harbor products, if you're familiar with them, the barn is going to be natural. It's not going to be painted. It's going to blend in with the area. So, and then additionally, I think in your packet there should be a copy of the town GIS map of the property that shows the relationship of this property to the abutting properties and what goes on in the area. So, as I stated, everything we are doing complies with the Orleans zoning rules and regulations, with the exception of exceeding the 4,000 square foot trigger that requires a special permit. As to the special permit criteria, the 4.6 acre site is adequate for the construction of the dwelling and the barn. All structures on the property will comply with dimensional requirements of the zoning bylaw. The residential site is suitable for the additional buildings. The resulting building coverage of 6,576 square feet is only 3.3% of the total lot area, where 15% is allowed. There will be no additional impact on traffic flow and safety. Jay and Holly and their adult children will be the only ones that will be using the property. The structures, both the barn and the house, have been located in a manner to be consistent with what we feel is a farm-like setting of the property, and we believe that the neighborhood visual character will not be impacted significantly. The barn is going where a 9-bedroom dwelling used to be, and as I mentioned earlier, the proposed house is over 300 feet away from the road. The property has the benefit of 2 new Title V sewage disposal systems. It's served by town water. All stormwater runoff will be contained on site as required by the zoning bylaw. Utilities and public services will not be impacted by the proposal. We believe there will be no noise or litter other than temporary noise impacts generated during construction, and a dumpster would remain on site at all times to contain all construction debris during the project. And we believe the project will have no negative impact on these valuable natural resources of groundwater quality, recharge volume, water quality of coastal and freshwater bodies. So it's a beautiful site. I love Port Innimaket Road is one of my favorite roads to drive down. It's quite rural. The conservation restricted areas are going to remain as they are by requirement, and we're hopeful that you find that this proposal is in keeping with the neighborhood and in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the bylaw. That would be my presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, it probably is, but you know, maybe you are a great distance from actual Port Innimaket Road, but you're only 29 feet from that lot in the back. What is that vacant land with that spaghetti strip?
No.
It's a driveway.
It's actually a vacant lot that is owned by Herb Gulquist, who owns property to the rear of here and adjacent to this, and I can show you the shape of it. All I can say is that the Shacklefords and Herb and Herb's caretaker, Albert
this is their
Avalar, have a
driveway.
very good relationship. Their caretaker sometimes helps out with the mowing and vice versa. I think Holly and Jay, they haven't been here long, but I don't, with respect to the 29-foot setback, Mr. Chairman, 25 is the minimum, and we're complying with that.
Wasn't saying that, no, wasn't saying that at all. I didn't mean to give that kind of a suggestion. You got a huge percentage hike in coverage before and after, but it's really mitigated by the fact that you're putting it on such a large lot, even though a good part of the lot is encumbered or subject to the conservation restrictions. So that the actual percentage of the coverage is quite modest. So
And if I could
so in
point
that-
out,
in that respect, it's in scale, and I suppose that's what we'll be seeing more often now, with the 4,000 square feet being exceeded time and time again. It's probably a better test to look at the resulting percentage of coverage.
and if I can point out, Mr. Chairman, the building that was removed was 2,105 square feet. So had they not removed it, and we came in with the numbers, we would have been going from 4,200 to 6,500 rather than 2,100 to 6,500. So it's skewed a little bit.
I understand that, it's definitely skewed. Any questions by any members of the board?
Is the conservation land buildable? Is it a buildable?
Absolutely not. I've
No,
read the
be-
restriction.
Before it was restricted, was it a buildable
Yes.
Yes.
upland? Yeah,
Mhm.
thank you.
And what's very nice about this is their abutter, Herb Gulquist, owns a significant portion of the other undeveloped property that you see from the road. So it is a very pretty area.
Members of the board, I'm advising you that the file does not contain any correspondence by any objector or anyone in favor of the application.
Do I understand, are there two, what am I called, gym or workout areas, one in the barn, one in the lower level of the main house?
He,
Just curious.
there are two proposed, and my recent conversations with him are that as the numbers have been coming in for the construction, that may change, Mr. McCarthy. That one may be eliminated.
Okay. And this is a minor matter, but on the floor plan for the house, and maybe I can't see it, but, all the rooms are properly identified, and I'm assuming what would be the living room, or, great room, as we call them, is off of the dining room and adjacent to the sunroom and laundry. I just don't see it marked as such, but not.
Yeah, that's correct. It's not identified, but you are absolutely right.
The size of the room is what caught my attention as attractive. And it was a 9-bedroom dwelling that's going to be taken down, correct?
The-
Down.
Already.
It was removed,
Okay.
and it was a 9-bedroom dwelling. Before it was removed, we designed and installed a septic system suitable for a 9-bedroom dwelling. So what exists, the existing infrastructure on the site is adequate for the proposed use. No changes are needed. It's actually oversized slightly.
Is it in the same front location near the barn?
The septic system for the barn, or for, I should say, that was for the house is here. There's an additional septic system for the cottage that is here, and we are going to be tying the house into this septic system through the use of a septic tank and a pump chamber. We're going to have to pump the effluent from here to there. But it's not, that's a pretty standard procedure these days.
It's pretty far distance,
It's
isn't it?
the distance
It is,
good, yeah.
and one of the requirements is that you have a clean out or a manhole at least every 100 feet to make sure that it could be accessed and cleaned if necessary.
My last question, by chance, do you know if given the owner's last name, if there is any connection to the explorer named Shackelford?
I don't believe so. Jay Shackelford hails from Kansas,
Okay.
and he does have a farming background, and he's a local doctor. I don't know if any of you know him, but he is a local physician. But
Not in
and that's
Kansas anymore.
he's not in Kansas anymore. But when this came on the market, he grabbed it pretty quickly.
I only ask, I met a descendant of them up in Vermont years ago, just a random introduction. so
I think I'm pretty safe to say he's not related.
Okay. All right, no more questions for me?
Very well. Mr. Tom?
No, sir.
Mr. Jablon?
No, none.
Very well. Anything further, Mr. Mulligan?
No, nothing.
Very well. Now, let me ask whether there's anyone present, I'm sorry, Beth? Yes.
On the house, is the front of the house facing north?
Yes.
There's no directionals on the.
Yes, the front, yes.
Okay. And do you have the square footage of the barn and the garage?
Yes, they are located on the lower right side of my site plan.
Oh, okay.
The barn is 2,208 square feet, and interestingly enough, the former house that was there was 2,105 square feet. So the footprint of the two structures is very similar. So I think a lot of people, even people that live there, have forgotten what the house looked like, but it's similar.
Yeah.
Is that north arrow? Does the north arrow in the locus map little larger.
There's nothing on this.
Well, there is over, if you,
That little circle?
that's a good, you bring up a good point. It does not reflect, it just says front, rear, right and left elevation, but the
Yeah,
front
okay.
does face north.
Okay. Now, are they gonna be able to farm on the conservation restricted area? Can they do
Only in
anything
the
with
garden.
that?
Only in the garden.
Only the garden? Everything else is just gonna remain open fields?
It has to be maintained in its existing estate, in existing conditions.
Can they put horses on it?
I don't believe so. I think any of that has to occur within the unrestricted area.
Okay.
They can't even do any grading on it. They can't change grades on it.
Is this where the
Where-
horses were?
Hmm?
Is this where the horses were?
No, the horses were next door.
Next door, yeah.
Yeah, the Gallagher property that's now been torn down.
David, were the conservation restrictions, did they precede the Shackelford's purchase, or were they,
They were established by the prior owners who the Shacklefords purchased it from.
okay, so
Yes,
it
the
runs,
family.
runs with the land then, and,
Yes.
okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of
Did you
this
see the plans,
application?
Bob? Have you seen the plans?
I've had to see the plans, but I think that there's one thing that, there's actually three abutters, not just Gulquist. The family of, Sarah and David and
Broussard?
Tim
Yeah.
are all abutters that I see. And I guess now the new rules is, I'm an abutter to an abutter. And so I didn't get notice of this, but I happened to read it and
Oh, okay.
did look at the plan.
Well, if I may, your secretary notifies the abutters, and she's given a certified list within 300 feet of Locust from the Board of Assessors, so we notified everybody that we were required to.
Well, that's what I understand, that's 300 feet, and although one of the abutters, which abuts me, appears to be about the same distance that I am, but, I mean, it's not a problem. I
You're
think
just
it-
outside the loop.
I did look at the plan, and it looks like it's very tasteful. The only question I had was also, one of the elevations, which one of the abutters, if I was an abutter, would probably be objective, is that it appears that one of the elevations exceeds the 30 feet, which I guess was a bylaw, but is not a bylaw now.
You're correct that if you scale these plans, the roof height does exceed 30, and I brought that to the architect's attention, and they will make sure that we do conform to the 30-foot height restriction. But I can say the abutter to the rear that's most affected by this project, I provided plans, and I emailed them to Herb Gulquist, who is also a client of mine, and through me, I can say he has no issues with the project.
Very well.
No, and I understand that, because I'm an abutter to all of them, I mean, basically, that family. And I've been here for 50 years, so, and I think that, they're all in favor of it.
30-foot.
That was the only concern that I had, is that
It's okay.
sometimes people don't understand what an elevation looks like, but it appears that one of those elevations appears to be closer to 40 feet rather than 30 feet.
I think it might be a 2 or 3, the way it's drawn, it may be 2 or 3 feet too high, but I can assure you that when the building inspector is provided, and these are preliminary plans. I never bring full construction documents to the zoning board because you never know if it's going to be approved.
Okay.
Once it's approved, a full set of construction documents will be submitted to Tom, and as I mentioned, this will conform with all the zoning requirements of the bylaw.
It really doesn't, maybe you weren't entitled to the legal notice because you, for some reason, you're outside that bulge. But the fact of the matter is, if
301 feet.
you live down Rock
Yeah.
Harbor, if you live down Rock Harbor, you could still come in and talk to us about
Right, right.
this application. But the applicant's not looking for any kind of relief from any height requirement. So so we're not even gonna consider that. The building inspector will ride herd if we give a special permit on those dimensions that we didn't deal with, because we haven't been asked to. But we've listened to you.
Okay.
And is there anyone else wishing to speak?
For the record, that was Mr. Perry.
Bob Berry, yeah.
Very well. Welcome.
Thank you.
Any other questions by the board or comments? You have anything else to say, Mr. Little?
No, thank you.
Very well, then I'll close the hearing for the taking of evidence and ask the board to discuss it.
I'll move to grant the permit.
Very well.
Second.
Is there any discussion on the motion now it's been made and seconded? There's no discussion, then what is the vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? The motion carries unanimously. I'll write the opinion. Thank you, Mr. Little.
Thank you.
Who made the motion?
Mr. Mulligan.
Who seconded? Who seconded?
I did.
Okay.
Go Dodgers.
I'd like to reconsider the granting.
Where does that, where does that come from?
New York.
Dodger allegiance.
My wife won a contest on the radio the last time the Dodgers were in the World Series when they played Oakland. And we won tickets out to see the game, and I saw the game that Kirk Gibson hit the home run, that he ran around, So,
You were there, huh?
I was there.
That's a famous moment.
It was.
Members of the board, there's no other business to bring before the board, but I think as a matter of information, there was a zoning bylaw task force meeting on October 25th, and I have been recently the designated member from the zoning board who attends these meetings. I was called off Cape, so I wasn't able to attend the meeting, but I thought I might indicate to you a sample of the agenda, which included an amendment to the bylaws concerning soil removal, a draft bylaw concerning recreational marijuana, a review of a proposed drive-through facility prohibition, the review of the apartment development bylaw clarifying the period for recommendation. Now, I haven't weighed in on the recreational marijuana bylaw, but I can tell you, and I can circulate the proposed bylaw, because as you may or may not know, the Zoning Board of Appeals is the permitting authority for medicinal marijuana, and this zoning bylaw, which deals with other sales of marijuana, also seems to show that the special permitting would be done here. This is a type of consideration that we haven't dealt with, generally speaking, because ordinarily the Board of Health kind of weighs in and is in a better position of making certain judgments than the zoning board concerning matters of health or public safety. But the zoning board may end up with this as the permitting authority, and this is just a kind of a heads up.
Mr. Chairman, that might involve exhaustive investigation of before we could.
A lot of testing?
I disapprove of any drive-through marijuana facility.
I was gonna ask, is that
It sounds
distinct?
perfect to
No,
me.
they were two different.
They were two
they two different items. They were two completely different
I
items.
think Bruce and I were on the same drive-through.
I could make a little comment on that, FYI, and it probably is worth researching. I worked for a Department of Corrections for my career, and I was a parole officer, and then I was a behavioral therapist in the men's prison. Close security, not a, bad check writer's prison. And I have my ear to the ground on this subject, and I do, this is just my opinion, and it's worth researching. I do believe that there are some medical advantages and benefits from marijuana, such as appetite for cancer patients, glaucoma, all this. There's something that's not widely publicized. Marijuana clinics or whatever like that, they actually tend to exacerbate the local problems of marijuana abuse. And it seems to be that the places where you can buy it doesn't sell Purple Haze and Kush and all the more powerful ones that marijuana users like. And I know some of you have seen the show Cops on TV, and from time to time, cops will arrest people for possession and distribution, and they'll be typical, covered with tattoos, teeth knocked out, and they all have medical marijuana cards. So I could research this if you want me to, but I'm thinking of the public safety aspect. I hate to be the kind of citizen that puts troublemakers on a bus for another town, but it typically doesn't help the local community. It doesn't help, and I can research that. There are more cars broken into, etc., because those who have a proclivity towards addiction can't get enough from the clinics. And I already explained about the more attractive versions of marijuana. So it's just something to keep in mind. If you'd like, I could go online and do some hard research on it, but cities like Denver and others haven't fared well with this from a public safety viewpoint.
Have not?
Correct.
That's just the medicinal aspect.
No, I'm talking about here's some hard facts. In some of these cities, for $250, you can get a 15-minute appointment with an MD. And you can say how your inner child hurts and mommy hit you and that, and you can get a medical marijuana card. Okay? And it tends to be abused, and it leads to greater addictions. Had nothing to do with the medical use whatsoever. But this is what I've heard with my ear to the ground, and it was so when I left the Department of Corrections in 2008 and retired. So that's it.
Where were you, what state were you in?
Ohio.
Ohio.
And I was in the tough inner city and the equally tough Appalachian rural regions.
Okay.
So that's it, I'll just throw that out there. I threw this out a little bit at the town meeting, but no one was really interested in it. But this is a different venue.
It is, and I'm not sure where it's going, but there's a difference between dispensing medical marijuana, so to speak, which I think that there's a finite number of facilities, we'll say on the Cape, that could do that. And Orleans is not one of the municipalities. Seems to me, Peter, it's Dennis that's been set aside.
Don't know.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said, Michael, at the end?
Dennis.
Just one?
There's a,
Okay.
yeah. No, I don't think I think there's more than one. But
I
the
could look
closest,
into
No, the closest one is Bridgewater
Oh, okay.
I thought there was
for the
one.
dispensary,
Okay,
and the other one is, I think, Brockton.
all right.
I have my American marijuana
I
card.
mean, I know that we
Yeah.
would do the permitting if it ever came
Yeah.
to Orleans, but the state has to trump
I mean,
a lot
I
of
just
that.
think there's a lot of benefits from the cannabis oil that are sort of swept under the rug because of the pharmaceutical industry. And the information I read on it says there's nothing that takes people from marijuana up to hard drugs.
Again, it
So
depends
there
on,
again, it's,
it depends on the researcher
mhm,
Yeah.
and what their interest is, believe me.
yeah.
Well, very well. We'll stay tuned. Thanks for your comments, Peter.
Okay?
Otherwise, there's any new business to come before the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn is
Second.
made, and the second by Mr. Jablin. All those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? The motion carries unanimously. See you in 2 weeks, gentlemen.